Hi, everybody. My name is Karan Singh. I'm the co-founder and chief operating officer at Ginger, soon to merge with Headspace Health.
Karan, you and I have known each other for a long time. And obviously, I actually remember the first time that I ever approached you guys. I had started a company in this sort of space where we were going to be trying to passively collect data about people. So tell me a little bit about sort of like how you guys got the idea for Ginger, because I know that it was you had some like twists and turns to get you to where you are right now.
Started just over now a decade ago, almost 11 years. Originally, kind of the impetus for me was a personal brush with mental health. Had a loved one who had actually tried to take their own life, and I was on the other end of a phone call when that happened, and set me on this journey to really understand this space and understand mental and emotional health more broadly. And the deeper I dug, the more I realized that this is a problem that most everyone is experiencing in some form or another, whether that's stress or lightweight anxiety or trouble sleeping. And most of the tools that we historically have used to support people in their mental health are quite limited. So we started our journey coming out of research that we were doing at MIT at the time, that there is no blood test for your depression. There's no easy way to measure stress. And it turns out that you could use data you can collect passively, sort of automatically off of a smartphone to infer how someone was feeling, understand whether they might be stressed out or anxious. And based on that data, provide that information to their care provider, to their doctor, their clinician, to actually help them get better care.
So if you guys had sort of this idea while you were in school, like when did you actually think like, oh, we could actually start a company to do this? Or was it really just like, the next version of your research was to try to start a company? Like what gave, because neither of you guys were entrepreneurs or had been entrepreneurs in the past, correct?
Yeah, no, for a first time founder, my co-founder had was doing his PhD on this topic actually at the MIT Media Lab, really trying to understand and leverage this data and predict a variety of predictions, everything from your political affiliation to whether the strength of a relationship to your mental health. And so, to be honest, I think when we started, it wasn't clear what the application was necessarily going to be, but we had this just over the course of 6 to 12 months, even longer, frankly, an incredible amount of inbound interest from people who saw kind of the promise of this technology, that using passive sensing data from our smartphone.
So is this like literally what is the data that you're collecting off the smartphone?
Yeah, no, important topic, important question. Um, so in the early days, the data that we were using was your communication patterns. So how much you were communicating and, let's say, texting with different people, how much you were moving about in a given day. It wasn't that Jeff and Karan are talking right now. It was really what was most important was understanding, A talks to B in this frequency and this sort of cadence. And that's indicative of someone actually having some sort of symptom flare. So again, information that was never really considered relevant in a health context, but it turns out when you get depressed, you change your behavior in ways that we can pick up from a smartphone. So instead of communicating with 10 people over the course of a normal week, you talk to the two people that you trust. Instead of going to and from school or work or to the gym or other, maybe other social activities, maybe you start to isolate yourself and you don't leave the home as often. There's all these patterns that we leave in our daily lives. We used to call them honest signals that are actually correlated with how you're feeling. But the key was really that, that data was yours. It was fundamentally, kind of your behavior, and people would share it with us when we knew we could actually help them get better care. So we weren't using that to target them with advertisements or to sell that data to some third party. It was really abstracting what we call features or sort of predictions from that data to really determine when they needed additional help.
So that's an interesting question, right? Because ultimately, I don't think the commercial application you picked is probably the one that will make you the most money. Like, do you ever think back on whether you should have gone in a different direction with this data to try to make something that was more commercially viable or more lucrative for you?
Whenever we grappled with that topic, we went back to our mission. And our mission has evolved, frankly, our vision has evolved, frankly, over the years. And today, it's a world where mental health is never an obstacle. And it was clear that you could use that data for other purposes, but not to solve that mission or that vision. And if we got that vision right, that there is no doubt that that's an incredibly lucrative opportunity. So, it meant sort of questioning or thinking back to why we're doing what we're doing. And so coming back to our why, and our why was really we wanted to solve this problem. And we knew that this data alone was actually not enough to solve the problem. I think that's actually one of the key lessons that we learned, one of the pivots that we made about almost 4 or 5 years into the journey of the company, that this data alone was insufficient. It was actually we needed to build the entire machine. We needed to actually become a provider of care and deliver the care ourselves instead of just predicting when someone was getting sick. We needed to actually get them the help they needed in the moment. So, and that opportunity is far bigger than anything we could have done in selling that data, for instance, to a third party. We knew that it wasn't our data. It wasn't our data. It wasn't our place to do so. And B, we thought that there was an even bigger opportunity ahead.
So when you think about this, you going back to the why, it sounds like the why was something that was super consistent for you, like from day one. How much has that why changed since day one?
The problem still exists. Unfortunately, during COVID and over the last 18 months, it's gotten worse. 1 in 2 Americans right now has symptoms of stress and anxiety and depression. And those stats have gotten even more pronounced with teenagers and other populations that are particularly impacted by COVID. So I'd say the why has remained consistent. The how has changed over the years, and the who has changed over the years, no doubt. And there was definitely times, and Jeff, I know we've talked about this over the years, that my own personal conviction was shaken, and not necessarily knowing if the why still mattered. But I'd say that's remained quite constant. I think what's changed is the world has continued to evolve. People's understanding and appreciation for mental health has evolved, and so I think it's gotten even more important now than it was a decade ago. And I think that's only going to continue as we kind of come out of the pandemic.
When you think about the challenges that you face, or actually the sort of infancy of the company, let's talk about that. You're in grad school, you have sort of an interesting research project, or at least Amal does. You have a passion for this because of your personal brush with this. Who were the types of people? Name a couple people that really helped you crystallize this idea that maybe you could start a company, right? Because again, as a first-time founder, like I remember when I was in my 20s, like the idea of starting a company, and this is, I think I was just out of college. I had no concept that you could start companies, but like now a lot of people start companies. Like, so who were the people, or what were the things that gave you actually the freedom or the conviction that this is something you should do as your job, not as just like a research project or as something that you're doing as a hobby?
Yeah. You need a whole lot of help along the way to give you the courage to take that leap, no doubt. Quite a few people that were instrumental, and kind of groups that were instrumental in taking that leap. I think one was Sandy Pentland, who is a professor at the Media Lab at MIT and has pioneered this sort of research over the decades. He was my co-founder's thesis advisor. He's been an early mentor, and we consider him a co-founder as part of the team. He was very instrumental, and in fact had a course that I took while at MIT that was all about taking ideas and turning them into ventures that had global social impact. And so really being able to say that, hey, an idea alone is insufficient. If you put it in the form of some sort of early stage venture that has the right capital and the right team behind it, you can actually launch it into scale. The second group was probably a set of our early angel investors. One of my first boss coming out of undergrad was our first angel investor in the company. His name is Ty Curry. He, I think more than anything, he believed in me and believed in us. At the end of the day, I think at that stage of as an early stage founder, so much of your ability to raise capital, especially if you're first time founder, is ultimately people betting on you. And ideas aside, it's about really betting on you as an entrepreneur, your ability to be able to be resourceful, to have the right mindset, to build resilience, to really figure it out. Because clearly we've evolved over the years. Our first story is not the story that we have today. And I think having people put money behind that not only provide you with advice, but actual capital is probably the best indication that they believe in you. And then I'd say the third bucket was we had a variety of different communities that we were a part of. Techstars was a really important one for us in Boston in our early days. So was a lot of the entrepreneurs that came out of MIT that were going through a shared experience at the same time, and who could actually trade stories about what was working, what was not. And it was really the straight talk, the stuff that's not on PowerPoint slides or that you find in forums online. It's the offline conversations that were really helpful. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say the forum that we've been a part of, Jeff, now for 7-8 years has probably been one of the most influential groups of people to really guide me through this journey.